Welcome to the talk on what can AI, artificial intelligence, do for big history. So what I'd like to do is just go over some of the aspects of how AI is rapidly becoming a part of our everyday lives. Also, how can AI understanding help big history? One is providing insight to human evolution. The other is by enabling a better understanding of future scenarios as humans and artificial intelligence work together. Then also, our understanding of AI and brains is explored by reviewing the fascinating developments in AI and comparing their evolution, and then also consider scenarios of AI and human integration. So first of all, artificial intelligence is all around us, and has been so for quite a while. Just look here at the history of artificial neural nets, which is one of the main leading developments in AI, and it started in the 1940s. That with something so simple can have a learning ability, that is, have many inputs, sum things together with weights, have a nonlinear function as the output, and then feed that on to other such neurons. 1960s, backpropagation was in there, and that is kind of feedback, and that is not only information was fed forward, but eventually it was found out whether the information was correct or not. If it was not correct, there'd be backpropagation to try to correct the various weights. 1980s, this connectionism was formed with multiple layers and applied to pattern recognition and convolution. However, it did not really take off much until the 2010s, about the last decade, where some tweaks led to major advances in convolution, doing averaging, solving the vanishing gradient problem, which had stopped things before, and also just the faster computers applied to it. So previously considered AI tasks are all around us, including maintenance and monitoring in factories, post office handwriting recognition, fingerprint analysis, quality control imaging, internet search engines, recommendation systems, fraud detection, and video games. But recent applications have gained a lot of attention through self-driving cars and labs and a lot of other self-driving type of things. Large language models such as ChatGPT, which seems to be able to discuss with us various things and summarize things. Game champions and chess, Go, and Jeopardy, facial recognition being applied in various locations, and generative AI, which can generate deep fakes of photos, videos, audio, music, and art. So there's some applications to big history to understand. So one is literature search, and we've always kind of done this. It's very important in a transdisciplinary fields such as big history to be able to search throughout time and throughout disciplines. It's also applied in various disciplines connected to big history, including physics, where things are used to go through large amounts of data. Computational biology, one of the major improvements is in the protein folding, which was very difficult and has already been solved by AI. To look at a neuronal connectome to study brain structure, speeding up intensive models like the Earth climate models, and to control plasma chaos infusions for potential energy machines in the future. So how do we understand the various scenarios in the future evolution? So what will be the role of AI? How will AI and humans collaborate and evolve together? Will AI reach consciousness? And will a technological singularity happen as people in Silicon Valley kind of pretend? Or will a great inflection happen after the big history singularity trend in many different types of fields such as the environment, energy, and global problems? So one way to help understand human evolution is to look at what we consider to be how the brain works, which is not very detailed right now. There's still just so many things to understand in how the brain works, and so AI can help that because we are kind of trying to mimic parts of the brain. So what is self-consciousness? What is the role of social interaction and tool use in the evolution of the brain? How is memory formed, maintained, and recalled? What abstract structures are needed to plan scenarios? Theory of the mind, develop math and symbology, and how long-term stability was sacrificed in evolution to maintain greater evolution role and capacity. That is, during the evolution of the brain, there had to be many kind of mutations and variations that still might be going on and might be pointing to some of the difficulties with brain evolution. So how do we compare the evolution of natural and artificial intelligence? So one is the organization. Humans and natural is bottom up in terms of the chemical, microtubules, neurons, groups, and brains. So there's a lot of structures being identified, not exactly sure how they work together. Artificial intelligence is not top down, as you would imagine to be the opposite of the natural one, but instead of the width and the depth. That is engineered at all levels, and so it can be quite wide or go to quite a bit of depth in terms of focusing. So things like expert systems are well developed, and it's much easier to develop an expert than it is to model a 2-year-old, which has quite a bit of width and very quick learning. In terms of reproduction, the natural evolution reproduce starting from a cell. That is, you don't take the final product and then reproduce that. In artificial intelligence, there is no auto reproduction. It's designed and built outside, but you can reproduce the memory, and it can be connected in a distributed manner. So the way that they reproduce and grow is quite a bit different. The awareness of the environment is in the natural system. It's been kind of bottom up, so it's common sense and physical movement from evolution just to survive. And from artificial intelligence, it's designed for a specific computational task. Again, kind of focusing on experts and kind of a narrow approach. Then handling uncertainty in the natural evolution, it handles uncertainty by emotional response, a little bit of determining surprises and how to learn from them. In artificial intelligence, it breaks if a problem is too far from the design focus. The energy needs of human brain is only 20 watts, whereas that for artificial intelligence is in the megawatts range. And the goals of natural systems are internally derived to survive, whereas in artificial intelligence, they're mostly externally set. So we look at aspects of complex adaptive system models. One is to sense the environment. There's various things for artificial intelligence like GIS, LiDAR type of things, accelerometers, infrared to find temperature. Then there's a model that compares what it senses with what it thinks is going on. And one of the tough parts, again, is common sense. Fit in some physics as to what expectations are, economics as to how others are going to behave, and then apply them to, for example, things like games. And then process and act, that is move, play games, and communicate. There's many scales, for example, a self-driving car or a city, which kind of controls more of the highways and takes control of all the cars. Energy efficiency, with AI, it's kind of moving towards simpler or spiking, since it's just hugely energy consumption in the way that it's handled now. And then how it handles uncertainty, so it's more graceful when it comes to a surprise, work in some common sense, be able to explain itself and communicate the result to others. So one of the general models of information use in evolution has been kind of developed by Carl Friston, who's put a very advanced kind of mathematical model to it to understand the brain and other type of evolutions. And so he looks at the ability to set goals and prioritize attention, process information, predict, act, and monitor the system response, and then learn by comparing reality with the perception. And this is very similar to the scientific method of having a theory, hypothesis, controlled experiment, and then learning from differences to modify the model. So all this is kind of just based on, kind of a scientific experiment where you have a model, you have things that can measure, you conduct some experiments to test whether that model is good or not, and you learn from the differences. So terms of the current neural net advances, mostly based on neurons, in terms of inputs, one output, weights, response function, and neuromorphic in terms of the energy and how it's modeled. Response function was a major change in the last decade to allow it to be applied to many more different functions and get the popularity. There are various layers. This was also developed in terms of a convolution of finding different patterns and then looking at patterns and patterns and patterns and patterns and patterns, and then pooling to integrate them, how they are connected, and then some type of feedback. And it will also have some assistance in being supervised, being told when it's right, when it's wrong, or constraints when it's physics, because you can only do so many things. If it's unsupervised, it can find clustering or enforcement learning, where it's told along the way whether it's going in the right direction or not. And so there is also then some feedback, and whether it's recursive or convolutional or some type of memory or adversarial, in which case there's two neural nets, one trying to generate something and one trying to determine if it's fake or not, and they work together to generate some deep fakes. And then the process of using these and designing them, so designing different layers, and here we see something that was designed, for example, to identify written letters, then it's trained on various ways of how you could write, for example, a 2. Testing of it, you have a different set to test because you can overtrain something. Then pruning to take out things you don't necessarily need. Then optimizing it to say how many layers you need, and that can also be done with hyperparameters now of helping the early design of a particular system. But a lot of times it's more of an art than a science. And so we have a large spread of capabilities, and here I show the human level performance by generality, and where the human performance is, and the generality the person goes out to. And so people have goals, plans, and scenarios, a common sense of communication and social interactions, and obviously consciousness and understanding. And the AI kind of applications are along some line there. Some actually have higher than human level performance. Others still striving for it, but are trying to get along with the generality type of thing. Self-driving is quite general. In virtual land, things can be a little bit more general because things AI does not have to move and really interact with the real world. So it can be a little bit more general in the situation of a virtual reality world. And so this is kind of like raising children. Microsoft likes to say it's like a co-pilot, but I really would not like to have a young child be a co-pilot as we fly a plane. It's more like raising children in this way, where knowledge is gained and interpreted with various supervised lessons and monitoring, so don't run into the variety of problems that we currently have with IT and with AI. And ensure the objective has been communicated correctly and constraints specified. And this communicating the objective clearly is even a problem between humans. And I like to point to the children's book Amelia Bedelia, where she takes exactly what everybody says word for word and then comes to really incorrect conclusions and actions. So it's very tough even within humans to actually communicate objectives clearly, and so there's a paperclip catastrophe, whereas if we ask AI to make as many paperclips as possible, it might take all the resources and put them in there and not really have any type of constraints. And so there's various human AI connections in terms of virtual reality, human-computer networked infrastructure, possibly quantum computer and brain connections. And then at the level of institutions, it's not always, with one particular human. It could be within a whole city or within a whole government, for example, but that it's a long way. And so the conclusions are that AI is around us and has been for quite some time. It adds to the capabilities and risks. It helps in literature search, understanding evolution and models. Its evolution is quite different from natural evolution. General models of evolution have been proposed based on information processing, and various AI applications vary performance levels and generality. And human AI relationships might be viewed as raising children. Thank you very much for your attention.